Jake spent the entire summer while his parents were at work in his grandmother's warehouse. The summer after school program was canceled due to school renovations, and Jake flatly refused to sit at home alone. And the grandmother, sighing, agreed to take him with her to the service. The warehouse stood among workers' outbuildings, old boarded-up buildings, and utility rooms. Behind him was a vacant lot. The warehouse towered above the neighboring buildings, a concrete box with narrow windows and a single door, metal, painted crimson, with a heavy padlock. On the door, in white paint, someone wrote warehouse in large, careless letters. The warehouse stored things for railway workers. A railway line passed through the city, on which most of its population worked. Grandmother worked as a storekeeper. Every morning she turned on the light above the only table littered with papers, accounting forms, receipts, and expenditure orders. The table stood apart, right next to the door, in a patch of yellow, dim light. The rest of the warehouse was dark. For some reason, the overhead lighting always didn't work, so we looked for the necessary boxes with a large, heavy lantern. Jake came to the warehouse in the morning and joyfully threw himself into the tempting darkness, as if he was diving into water. The warehouse consisted of huge racks on which treasures stood, lay, and were piled. Boxes with radio components, microcircuits, diode lamps, boxes with spare glass for traffic lights, heavy transparent glass pancakes, red, green, blue. In the far corner there was a mountain of winter uniforms and heavy sheepskin coats. Jake conquered this mountain with a running start and often fell asleep on its top. In one of the boxes he found 100 long white stearin candles. With them, traveling around the warehouse became even more interesting. Wires, instruments, sensors. In the flickering light, everything looked like a real treasure. Jake opened each drawer and studied the next discovery with quiet delight. Sometimes he took her to her grandmother. She briefly explained why this was needed, without looking up from her papers. She was always drawing up something. Her fingers were blue from a leaking pen and purple carbon paper. Some of the upper shelves were empty. Jake climbed onto them, like a cabin boy onto the mast, along the adjacent cabinets, settled down in the dust, and wrapped a chocolate bar given by his grandmother and began to observe. He quickly realized that in the warehouse, besides him, his grandmother, and the invisible, but always audible rats, there was another life. In the corner behind the shelves, twice a day, at exactly 12 and at 4:30, a transparent man appeared. A lanky man in a coat, with an umbrella, with a briefcase under his arm, with a long face and thick-rimmed glasses. For a few seconds he froze, looked around, then winced in annoyance, as if he had entered the wrong door, and went back into the corner, into the wall. This was repeated without change, and at first Jake wanted to help the lost man, but he did not notice him. Jake shrugged his shoulders and once a week, just in case, looked into the corner to check if the shadow man had disappeared, but he was as accurate as a clock. Behind the piles of sheepskin coats there was a special wall. If you leaned against it, you could hear the radio. It was quietly playing some marches and old romances, and they were also broadcasting messages about the war. On the other side of the wall there was a vacant lot. Jake crawled around it in search of the source of the sound. But I realized that the radio was playing somewhere inside the wall and not behind it. It was interesting to listen to the radio, but sometimes broadcasts about victories near some cities were interrupted by hissing, as if someone was sharply turning the tuning knob. Under the lower rack, next to the aluminum tanks, there lived a mass. Jake wanted to come up with a name for her, but couldn't. The mass consisted of folds of skin, quite human in appearance, and had one short, deformed arm with 3 fingers. The mass always swayed fearfully when Jake dropped in to visit her, so he tried to do this less often. In the middle of the day, my grandmother unwrapped lunch and warmed it in an old stove on which a pile of papers was piled on top. She laid it out on plates, beautiful, white, painted with flowers, light, almost weightless. For lunch there were always different dishes, cutlets, casseroles, pies. Grandma, like Jake, did not like side dishes, so she allowed half-eaten potatoes or boiled vegetables to be left on the plates. Jake sometimes secretly shook them into a ball of paper and carried them to the far wall of the warehouse. There was a hole in it that looked like an endless tunnel into the darkness. Jake deliberately shined his grandmother's lantern there, but he never saw the end. And on the other side of the wall, of course, there was no hole. Ignat left the remains of his lunch at the hole and turned away for exactly 5 seconds. And when he turned back, there was no food, and instead of a paper bag, there was a piece of colored glass. If you turned earlier or later, there was no glass, and Jake collected the pieces of glass and looked at people through them. Their faces were amusingly distorted. Some had 2 heads, others grew extra eyes or mouths. Ignat didn't know what this meant, but watching people, loved through glass, true. He spent most of his time with his grandmother, and through the glass she looked as usual. No strange things. At the end of the summer, Jake fell. For a week he lay at home with a sore throat and could not speak. He wheezed like an old faucet. Then he gathered his strength and told his mother, "Mom, yes, Jake. Mom, I'm feeling better already. Can I, when I get better, you will come with us to the dacha. You can swim there and eat berries." "Well, yes. Can I go to my grandmother later?" "Where?" "Well, to the warehouse. To Grandma." "Which grandmother, Jake?" Mom frowned. Her parents lived in Florida. Her husband was from a shelter and never knew his parents, but the son asked with absolutely honest eyes. After listening to Jake, she turned pale and rushed to her husband. When Jake recovered, his parents took him to the warehouse. During his illness, the path to him became overgrown with grass, as if no one had walked along it. The warehouse was closed, the padlock covered with a thick layer of dust. Someone had written a crooked note with chalk on the white sign on the door. Now it read storage. His parents were almost not angry with him. They were relieved to reprimand him for his fantasies. There was only a little summer left. Next week it will be September. 3rd grade classes will begin, and Jake will no longer be wandering around vacant lots and inventing fairy tales. On the last day of summer, Ignat was sent to buy bread. Thoughtfully gnawing on a fresh loaf of bread, he walked past the vacant lot where the warehouse stood. He stood there for a minute, and he turned onto a familiar path. There were no lights in the warehouse windows, and the lock was still hanging on the door. Jake sighed sadly. He sat on the threshold, clasping his knees with his hands. He put the bag of bread on the ground, raised his hand, and knocked on the door. For a second, nothing happened. Then the lock shackle slowly began to turn outwards with a creaking sound. The castle fell with a clang. The door opened quietly. A grandmother came out of the darkness to meet Ignat, smiled at him, and stepped aside. "Have you finally arrived? Are you bored?" "Hello, Grandma." "Yeah, well, come on in." And Jake stepped inside with a happy. On May 26, I was returning home from the store. It was a quiet evening. The wind occasionally blew slightly in a southerly direction. I had plans for this evening. Since I follow the lunar calendar, I knew that at 9 in the evening in the Primorsky territory, and right there, the perigee lunar eclipse would be visible. I decided to go watch the lunar eclipse on some flat, open surface near Vladivostok. I had such a surface in mind, and there could be no complications with it. So, when I was returning home, I, as usual, decided to take a shortcut through an abandoned warehouse. I had long checked it for the presence of cursed or magical objects, and therefore I calmly walked around the crumbling building. There were no homeless people or drug addicts in this abandoned warehouse, which was quite good for me. The warehouse was a low 3-story building. The windows were broken. The doors were missing. The monster attacked again and again, turning into black lightning for a split second and then appearing in another place. It ignored my invisibility and seemed to anticipate every step. I decided to take decisive action. I jumped and found myself on the 2nd floor. The creature that had materialized at the gap shook its head in surprise. Then it raised its head, sniffing, and took off with a triumphant roar. I had already managed to prepare, and when the creature soared into the air, I pushed off and jumped on it. Under my unexpected weight, the monster collapsed, and I managed to jump off and grab onto the rusty railings of the 2nd floor. I concentrated, and with magic I pulled the shopping bag towards me. Anything that I hold in stealth mode, for some reason, also becomes invisible. Then I pulled myself up, climbed over the rickety railing, and jumped into the gap in the wall. I ran away, hoping that the monster was not chasing me. I quickly went to one of the beaches near Vladivostok and decided to forget about this incident. Imagine my amazement when, upon returning home, I saw my witch friend Nastia in my kitchen, sitting next to this creature. Oh, you are already back. Nastya was delighted. Meet, this is Jared. Equal 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 equal. As it turned out, Jared was a familiar of one of Nastya's friends, whom I don't know. She let this cute cat go for a walk in the forest near the city, and he got lost. And for the third day now he was sitting in the warehouse, hunting for passers-by. This story is completely in the spirit of Nastya and me, but you must admit, it was quite creepy. That day, as usual, I woke up at 2 in the morning. My daily routine is completely out of whack. Taking out a cigarette, I went to the balcony to smoke. The silence of the night that tightly surrounded the city evoked some kind of uneasy feeling. Only occasionally passing cars diluted the oppressive fear. Fear, it constantly haunted me. I've been feeling really bad lately. I have no parents. I lived alone in a large apartment that I inherited. I couldn't find a job. They didn't hire me due to lack of experience. Of course, I could have gone to work as a loader or as a cleaner, but then a whole bunch of illnesses that I had developed since childhood came into play. But you need money. I could change my apartment, but the dream that I would someday have a big family, a beloved wife, and a bunch of children did not allow me to do this. But that was not the reason for the fear. I instinctively felt that something terrible was going to happen to me soon. I went into the store and immediately unfolded a newspaper with advertisements on the counter. Among the list of long familiar texts, I saw something new. Work for everyone. That same day I called there and they accepted me. The work was not difficult. It was necessary to protect a small area, some abandoned workshop. On the first day they explained to me what and how. In principle, nothing special. The only surprise was that I would not be working alone, but with some other guy. I immediately inspected the area. The workshop was closed, but through the cracks I saw that it was an ordinary furniture warehouse. There was assembled furniture, ready for sale, and disassembled furniture, which was collected during the day and taken to the store, which was about 200 meters away. There was nothing unusual: wardrobes, sofas, some boards, cabinets, mirrors, and so on. On the first night I met a guy partner. His name was Volodya. He turned out to be the same loser as me. I won't go into details, but I'll say that even though he was my age, he treated me like an elder, constantly served me, and I liked it. Every night we talked about life, about our dreams. He played the guitar well, and I drew. We quickly became friends, and the fear that haunted me began to disappear. And then one day, while spending time having another conversation, we heard some noise in the workshop. The fear immediately returned. Thoughts about ghosts and other devilry immediately came into my head, but I pushed them away and began to convince myself that these were all fairy tales invented for children. We sneakily approached the workshop and looked through the crack. Everything was quiet. It was clear that one of the mirrors had fallen and broken. By the way, I forgot to mention, during the interview I was told that the previous caretaker was fired precisely because someone constantly damaged the furniture, especially the mirrors. They were either broken or scratched, but they always lay with the reflective side down. We decided to deal with this in the morning and went back to the lodge, but something made me stop. I told Volodya that we needed to check something and headed towards the fragments. Volodya, go and get a broom and dustpan, I told my partner. While Volodya was away, I decided to collect the large fragments with my hands. Picking up the first one, I brought it to my face, because I hadn't seen it for several days. Looking at the week-old stubble, I noticed some kind of black spot on the fragment, as if from soot. I wiped it with my sleeve and looked again. A shiver ran through my body. It wasn't a stain at all. Some black substance was standing behind me, and while I was wiping the fragment, she approached me a couple of meters. I turned around, but didn't see anyone. I looked at the shard again, and my hair stood on end. Out of fear, I forgot how to breathe. Through force, I inhaled and exhaled, I have never experienced such fear. It stood right behind me. I felt it with my whole body. Through the black veil a silhouette could be seen. Long and thin arms and legs, a huge head. The eyes are closed, as if it is sleeping. I realized that when you look at it through a mirror, it cannot move. Time has never dragged on so long. Where is this damn Volodya? I stood silently and watched. Due to the fact that I squeezed a fragment in my hand very tightly, it dug into my palm like a knife into butter. Blood ran down my arm, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the fear I felt. The fragment, covered in blood, began to slip out of my hands. Volodya, where are you? I have never been so happy in my life as I was that evening when I heard the sound of the door opening. Volodya, quickly bring the mirror here. Whatever you find. There is only a wardrobe with a mirror, so tear him to hell. But you will have to pay, so what? Do as I say. While Volodya was dragging the mirror, I watched the creature. He didn't move. Okay, now put it in front of me and hold it, I said when Volodya brought the mirror. As soon as the mirror was in front of me, I threw out the shard and grabbed the mirror. Holding it in front of me, I headed towards the exit. Volodya walked behind. The creature stood still. Damn, it was so hard to walk. While I was standing, my legs went numb, but the most unpleasant thing was the pain in my arms, which did not allow me to hold the mirror normally. I felt that my hand was about to unclench and the mirror would fall out. I was almost at the exit. No, Lord, no, not now, I prayed to myself. And then the hand unclenched. The last thing I remember is how Volodya's head came off his body and hung in the air. I heard that the head can live for several seconds without the body, and now I saw it with my own eyes. His face was distorted with a grimace of fear, and tears flowed from his eyes. How I wish this all turned out to be just a terrible dream. But it really happened. Suddenly I felt a surge of adrenaline and my legs carried me at breakneck speed. I ran for a very long time until I reached my house. There, having locked myself from the inside, I began to smoke one cigarette after another. I thought about Volodya, about my parents, about my dreams. I understood that instead of Volodya it could have been me. I have never had such a desire to live. I once worked as a loader in a building materials warehouse, and there was one mystical incident there. In short, we hired a new guy as a loader. Well, the first day we didn't put much pressure on him so that he could get used to it in general. On the second day, everything came as usual, and at 4 o'clock in the evening he disappeared, and it was winter, so it was already dark. Well, the warehouse is huge. God knows where it went. In short, everyone worked without him, and he's been gone for an hour. We're watching. He comes to our cantila, and we ask him, "Where have you been?" Yes, I helped the storekeeper there. What the hell kind of storekeeper is that? We had 2 storekeepers working that day, and everyone was with us. Yes, Igor. Which Igor? Yes, such a bald guy you have with a beard. Well, here the second loader, and I went crazy, because we had been working for a long time and knew that this warehouseman Igor died 2 years ago in this very warehouse. Then he was crushed by a pack of laminated chipboard, so he tried to put pads under them. And then we had a 2-ton loader on the move, and who knows what he couldn't stand. In short, he dropped the whole pack on a guy, and there were about 2 tons. The sheets seemed to be 16 millimeters each. Well, of course, to death. They told the storekeepers that they themselves were in shock. The guy immediately turned pale. He began to shake. The next day, of course, he didn't come to work anymore. Everyone was afraid to go to that part of the warehouse. The light doesn't work there. During the day, the light still shines through the windows. Well, more or less, but it's dark like evening. Armed with a flashlight. I myself, when I had to go to that part of the warehouse, took a baby with me so that I could quickly get there and get out of there even faster. Since even before this incident, I felt uneasy there. And after that, I only went there during the day. When they started asking how they could at least help him, and he was already saying something incomprehensible, well, it was clear that he was nervous. Then they realized that, "Do you have a flashlight in your phone?" "Dedicated." He said something like this, and that warehouseman looked strange. He was in very dirty clothes, and his face was almost black with dirt. Our warehouse, by the way, is not clean. There is a lot of dust. In general, I often saw someone in this warehouse out of my peripheral vision. But when you turn your gaze, there is no one there. Sometimes I saw a person, sometimes an animal. Even giants were seen above the racks. Then somehow, at the end of the warehouse, we needed more racks, and they were lying in the garage or what. This extension had doors like a garage. Of course, there was no light there either, in the second loader, and I moved there with flashlights. There was a lot of rubbish there. Before the warehouse, there used to be some kind of enterprise there. But the strangest thing is that we found a jacket on the floor, and it was very dirty. But it wasn't just any jacket, but the one that was given to the storekeepers. All the storekeepers had these jackets with them, and no one lost them. Most likely Igor's jacket, but I don't even know why it was lying there. After that incident, I quit there 3 months later, and I don't know what's going on there now. There is a photo from that same warehouse. Here https://jitcode.ru/cherny-kladovshik. The most terrible stories from life.